For more resources, visit rymonline.org.
The Local Youth Worker is a daily podcast that's centered on 5 questions each week. Ranging from the practical to the professional, we're looking for answers to the questions you're asking. Whether you're in full-time, part-time, or even volunteer youth ministry, this podcast is for you.
Hey everybody, Molly and I have been talking about the movie Love, Simon. We talked about just on the first day explaining what it was a little bit and then answering the question yesterday, why would we even go to see Love, Simon? But today we're going to answer the question, what can we praise about Love, Simon? What are some good things we can highlight? And I think this is important for several reasons. I think one, the Christians and the church can be labeled as just hateful towards all homosexuals, and so in some ways, I think we can say, hey, there are certain aspects about this movie that we can walk away with and say we enjoyed, but also it highlights a theological truth we know as common grace. We would say that, God owns all of creation. And so he owns every director in Hollywood. He owns every screenplay. Now, of course, he doesn't condone everything that ends up at, Malco movie theater or wherever, you go and see movies. But his truth is going to come through unbelievers as well as believers. So there are certain things that are true, that are beautiful, that are good, that we can highlight from a movie like this. So since we are talking a little more critically about this movie and ways in which we obviously agree with the biblical worldview, we thought it would also be helpful to kind of highlight some things we could praise. So I think just first off, I'll start by just saying just kind of the production quality of the film. That overall it's a well-made movie. That the acting is good for the most part. Not every character is great, but the leading characters, I think it's Nick Robertson. I forgot his name. We can look that up. But I mean, he was a good actor in the film, as well as just the music in the movies. And I'm gonna have just a little side note on this, and just kind of give a critique to Christians. Because there are those quote-unquote Christian films, and we know it's become very cliche to just kind of bash those movies. But it is interesting that, we have the most beautiful message of all, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I hope there are more and more Christian filmmakers that strive for better, artistic value and just production quality over some of those movies. And so all that to say, we could definitely take a lesson from this movie, because again, this is a movie that has a message we don't agree with at all, but it is done in a pretty, polished and professional way. And so, okay, I'll get off my soapbox on that. But what are some things, Molly, that you appreciated about the movie?
Yeah, one thing that I appreciated from the movie was Simon's friend. So just part of the storyline is we have Simon, who is being blackmailed by Martin because Martin finds the email correspondence between him and Blue, and Martin wants his help to essentially start dating one of Simon's friends. And so he's like, if you don't help me, then I'm going to expose you and all of these things. And so Simon essentially sabotages 2 of his friends who liked each other, but then I don't know how to explain this. It's complicated.
You're doing a good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 of his friends liked each other, but he sabotages that in order for Martin to come in and be with the girl. And so, in all movies, there's got to be the conflict, and it's coming. And so eventually all of these people find out the truth about what's been going on. And this is a movie that is centrally focused on Simon's sexuality and his coming out and just this journey. And so you could think that they would just dismiss it and be like, oh, we're so glad that you told us, and we accept you fully, and just things like that. But his friends are mad. Simon lied to them. He manipulated them to get what he wanted, and so they're rightfully angry about those things, and they don't throw that under the rug. They deal with it, and they have to talk about it, and ultimately they do forgive him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you're making, Molly, because oftentimes, movies can just kind of make the hero so just perfect. In this movie, Simon is the hero, but he has flaws. And anyway, I thought that was very interesting that they did show that. It makes him, more of a three-dimensional character and not just kind of a cookie-cutter hero. So, yeah, I think that's a good point, Molly. Something, too, is that I appreciate about the movie is the parents' love for Simon. Although, Christians wouldn't agree with the conclusions of the parents by any means, we should affirm, their love that they showed to their child. Not too long ago, I was talking to a pastor who was telling me that there was a point in his child's life where his child thought that they might be struggling with homosexuality or same-sex attracted. And as the father, first and foremost said, well, I love you, and you know how I feel about homosexuality and believe that it's wrong scripturally, but I love you, and let's talk through this. And as the father talked and realized that the child was not same-sex attracted, just kind of confused by some of what they were hearing at school and all of that. Again, it goes back to the love of the parent. And so the parents in Love, Simon were very loving to Simon. And even I thought specifically the father in the movie, because I know in the book a little bit more, I think it portrays the father as this very gruff and just kind of almost nasty character in some of the ways that he would make comments about homosexuals. In the movie, Josh Duhamel, his character, does make some jokes, cutting jokes about homosexuals, and he's very insensitive about it. But he comes back and he apologizes to Simon and says he was hurtful with his words. And I just think that's something we can praise, that, a father admitting that he's wrong and coming and asking for forgiveness. I feel like, sadly, many men don't, or are too prideful to admit when they're wrong and ask for forgiveness. So, again, that's just something that I walked away that I think we can, as Christians, praise that.
Yeah, and I think when you see the reactions from his parents too, you get a sense that they love their son, they know their son, and they're just sad that he didn't come to them when he was struggling. And so I hope that all parents are wanting that for their kids to come to them when they are struggling and hurting in those ways.
Yeah, and just the overall theme of love and support in the movie. I remember a few just scenes that I'm kind of going through. But one is where Simon gets concerned for Martin, and Martin is kind of, he's not the most likable character, I guess we could say, in the movie. And part of it is he's the one who's blackmailing Simon and leaks the information. But Martin, there's a scene where he gets embarrassed very bad, and Simon just reaches out to him. And even though Martin is the one who exposed Simon, Simon's still just showing some love and concern to him. I also think of an interesting scene where, again, Martin is not a very likable character. But then there's this one scene in the Waffle House where he encourages Abby as this character. She's lamenting about her lack of relationship with her father and how her father's hurt her. And there's this kind of an endearing scene where Martin, this guy that you kind of hated the whole movie, is just very thoughtful and loving, and how he kind of reaches out to her. And then, at the end of the movie, Martin also buys Simon a ticket on the Ferris wheel. And again, a lot of this, it's in the context of things we would not support or agree with, but elements of love and support in the midst of, a narrative that we don't agree with or something we can appreciate. So, Ma, is there anything else you want to add to any of that?
Unrelated, going a different way. There were just some funny parts in the movie that I chuckled at. I remember, before the movie started, I was like, what if something's funny? Am I allowed to laugh? And so I'm glad you're talking about just common grace and that there are some things that I guess it's okay to laugh at. The principal was just a quirky character, had some good one-liners, and just his interactions with the students.
Yeah, and he's, I think Tony Hale is his name, and he's Buster Bluth off of Arrested Development, for any of those who've watched that. But yeah, his character was funny. So yeah, well, anything else you want to add, Molly?
I think that's all I got.
All right. Thanks, Molly.